Okay, so let's look at a couple of the assistive technologies that are out there and some of the newer ones which you may or may not be aware of. As you're looking at my screen, on the very top of my screen, I am using Chrome as my browser, and you see a whole bunch of icons up here next to my URL bar. These are all extensions that I have loaded onto Chrome that I personally use for me, okay? And then I still have a couple turned on from one of my last presentations. So one of my last presentations was with a transition group, and they were looking for timers for work. So students were going onto work sites and they were bothering their non-disabled coworkers by saying, when's coffee break, right? So we found a free extension, which is a coffee break timer for them that we can have those students. Well, this student is doing data entry on a computer at a trucking company. And again, he was persistently asking his coworkers when coffee break was. So now we have a break timer there that shows him at any time he's working, he can click up on his coffee pot and it would say 12 minutes till coffee break or whatever. So these are all extensions that we can use for different students with different types of disabilities. And again, the ones that I have turned on now are mostly the ones that I personally use, like a calculator. So again, a lot of the students that I work with need a one-click easy access calculator. Yes, on a computer, on a Chromebook, there's a calculator built in, but it's about 5 clicks in. In Windows, I think it's 5 clicks until I've used it enough that it comes up sooner. So for some students, it may be using the assistive technology of an extension, like a calculator extension. So I can just click there and now have access to a calculator. Now this calculator doesn't talk. If I needed a talking calculator, I would go back and find an extension for a calculator that talked, etc. So one of the most popular, probably the most popular, often recommended assistive technology tools, and newer ones that some folks are not aware of. The first one I want to talk about is Snap and Read. Snap and Read Universal, I just turned on my computer. So on the very right side of my screen, I have some additional tools that appeared here. And at the very top of my screen, right here on my icon for Snap and Read, there's a number 10 there. So what that tells me, Snap and Read has just done a readability study on the page of my website down here, where I talk about the PAR and about reading, and it said that my content down here is a 10th grade readability level. That alone is extremely valuable for teachers, mainly for teachers. I often use this when teachers, are saying the students having problems comprehending some of the instructional materials that we're giving them. So if it's web-based, or even if it's a PDF, I can pull it up on my computer, have Snap and Read do that readability study on it and say, well, it's a 12th grade readability level, and the student's reading at a 4th grade readability level. So that's why the discrepancy is there. Even if I have that text read out loud, that student may not understand that. So if I would go to a different website here, let's go to one of these. So I just flipped back to one of those 18 modules. Snap and Read did its assessment and said it's at a 12th grade readability level. So it does this live as you go to different websites or pull up different documents on your computer. Snap and Read will indeed do that readability study. If somebody's going to ask which measure do they use to come up with that readability, it's an average of 3 of them. They take 3 of the popular readability tools that regular ed literacy people use, and they take the average of those 3 to populate that number. Okay, so that's one of the things that Snap and Read can do. I've also just opened up a Google document on my screen, and it's a document that I've used, and it's just some random text that's up there. But on the right-hand side, Snap and Read has about 5 tools here that I can use. One of these is a simple text-to-speech tool.
Dragon cargo spacecraft is on its way to the International Space Station.
I don't know if you can hear that, but that indeed is reading everything out loud that's on my document. by the way, if I was working with an ELL student here and that student spoke German, I could change Snap and Read to German. It could read this English text and the voice would read it back in German. So it has that translation feature. And one thing that Snap and Read has done is they have, so it's a German accent that's reading the German text. It's not just a digitized voice that's reading German. So it literally sounds like the language. So it has text to speech. It also has a tool that if I was on a website and there was some text on a website that was not accessible, that text cannot be read out loud, it would take that, it can capture that text and indeed have that text read out loud by using this screenshot reader tool. The next tool down is a simplify vocabulary tool, which I'll show you in a second. But in the meantime, I want to turn on the color overlay tool. As I scroll my cursor down my document now, you're going to see that I have a color filter that's appearing here. So this is for those students that benefit from having a color filter laid over the text. And these are often the students that say that the text is moving around the screen as they're trying to read it, or students who are reading a line of text and all of a sudden their eyes pop down 3 lines. And so they'll read 4 words of 1 line and then they'll drop down like 5 lines and read. So this is a mask that's designed as I scroll down, it's going to have a different line of text highlighted. Hopefully that's the text that I'm reading. I can change these colors. So I just happen to have a weird gold and like pink color right now. Again, if we've done a color assessment on this child and we're like, they do better with purple and blue, I can change the colors of this mask. I'm just going to go out and go to just a generic website now to show you the feature of the text simplification feature. So I'm just attempting to go to the NASA website and hopefully there's some, yeah, so there's some text down here on this NASA website. This text-to-speech tool would also indeed work here. I note that this page is in the 11th grade readability level, this NASA site that I'm on. But I'm going to click over here on Simplify Vocabulary, and my screen just sort of flashed, and now a lot of my words are italicized that weren't italicized before, and those words have actually changed. So it now says a SpaceX Dragon cargo spacecraft. Before it said, oh, so basically it didn't have, oh, that's funny, I just accidentally turned on my translation. And it just put it to what, Spanish, I'm guessing. But it still says cargo. So it did say cargo spacecraft, but here it's telling me the definition of cargo, that it's things carried by a ship. Let's go on here to investigations. Acts of asking questions and trying to find the truth about something. So what this does is it goes through the text of the website and it has a live filter that changes the text on the website. It makes it easier readability level. It will do this basically with websites. So this is called a text simplification tool. Now, some of you may not use Snap and Read. You may use Read and Write for Google. Read and Write for Google also recently added a text simplifier into their tool. This tool also works, Snap and Read also works with Google Documents, and I also just opened up the outlining tool that's available to it. So that if I could successfully shrink my NASA window here, which I'm not doing very successfully, so I will give up. But so conceivably, a student could be here and collect some text from this website and have an outline over here opened up, and they could just add it by clicking the button. Oops, that was the wrong button. But by clicking one of these buttons, and the text will just automatically go into the outline. So there's no copying and pasting. Or if I had a Google document open, it would take what I've highlighted and automatically put it in my Google document. So if a student wants to take notes or wants to start writing a report, they can take some text from their resources, get that text into their document, and edit that text for their report. So that's just a really quick peek at Snap and Read from the Don Johnston Company. So I'm going to turn Snap and Read off so that it'll play nicely so that my read and write for Google Chrome will show up well. So what I'm showing you now is read and write for Google Chrome. Read and write for Google Chrome is another paid product. It is not free. However, it is free for teachers. So back on my website, on the reading page, I think further down underneath the PAR, I have a link here that will take you to the free teacher subscription. So if you go to Text Help, which is the company that makes read and write, again, you fill out a form, use your school email address. They'll see that and say, okay, you're really a teacher in Wisconsin. They will give you the full version of Read and Write for Google Chrome for your use. It is not free for your students. Read and Write for Google Chrome will read PDFs, as will Snap and Read. Now, Snap and Read, if you still have iPads in your district, and you might check with your tech department because often they have them around, but they just don't distribute them anymore, grab them and get the Snap and Read app. So once your district has purchased Snap and Read, you can download the Snap and Read app for free for either iPhone or iPad. So that if a paper test, a regular ed teacher gives a paper test or something that you weren't prepared for, you can take a picture of the paper document with Snap and Read, and it converts it to optical character through optical character recognition, and will read it out loud. Any Google document, we should be okay. So, I haven't tried a locked Google document. So I honestly cannot respond to the locked Google document. But PDFs, I like Read and Write for Google. I like Snap and Read. There are others that are free. So on my screen now, I have Read and Write for Google Chrome turned on. When you download Google Read and Write for Google Chrome, you get this puzzle piece on your toolbar. So I click on the puzzle piece. It opens up this panel of tools. Now, I right now have every one of these tools turned on. So very quickly, we have a grammar checker here, a word prediction program, a nice word prediction program. It works very well, as you can see, as I haven't even started typing yet, but it's recognizing the fact that I want to start typing, and it's guessing what the first word is that I want to type based on the frequency of my frequently used first word of sentences. So the only thing this word prediction program cannot do, I cannot preload, like I cannot go in and put, if my student needs to write a paper about spacecrafts, with CoWriter or other word prediction programs, they will have already a preloaded dictionary of spacecraft vocabulary that will predict for that student who's going to do the writing. So with this word prediction program, I cannot sort of preload the prediction with vocabulary of choice. For some students, that's a game breaker. But for most of the students, this word prediction program works just really well. This is a dictionary, a word dictionary that also has text-to-speech. So if the child cannot read the dictionary definition, it'll read them to them. If the child needs a picture-based dictionary, whoops, I must have the word Oshkosh highlighted. Let me hit muscle. And I'm going to hit picture dictionary, and it's going to come up with a picture, deplicting muscle. I have to give this company kudos because they have worked aggressively the last couple of years trying to get an image of every word that we can find. And they're still not there, but it's significantly better than what it was. If your child truly needs a picture dictionary and not a word dictionary, I can pretty much promise you that it will have the pictures you need. it has text to speech, so it will read individual words, it will read the whole document, it'll read paragraph by paragraph. I have an audio maker. I just want to briefly talk about this. Just worked with a student with learning disabilities who was a strong auditory learner. His visual learning was almost not there at all. And normally I don't see kids like this. So, and he was also an athlete. So he spent a lot of his time jogging and running. So for his language arts course, which he had flunked repeatedly, we found his books that he needed to read, digital versions of them. And what I did is I would take chapter by chapter, highlight it, hit this tool up here, Audio Maker. In just a second, it's working. What it just did is it took that paragraph and it's doing its thing. The internet here is a little, it's creating an MP3 of that paragraph. So here it is. And let's just put it on my desktop and save it. So that quickly, so my computer is now going to open up that file, and it's just going to be a voice reading that paragraph.
I live in Oshkosh. A SpaceX Dragon cargo spacecraft is on its way to the...
Okay, so it's sort of some weird text, but it's a really quick example of an audio maker. So he was able to then listen to the chapters of Romeo and Juliet or whatever it is they were reading, and he happened to do it as he was running at night. He'd get the files on his phone and he'd plug it in with headphones. And so he finally started eking a passing grade. No, he wasn't getting A's, but he was eking a passing grade in his language arts courses, which he wasn't before. Some other tools like, again, a screen masking, just like Snap and Read had. Yes, it has voice to text. So this is Google's voice to text agent. As I'm talking now, it should be typing everything that I am saying on the screen, period. New paragraph. Okay. So it has a voice to text agent. It uses the same one that Google uses. So that's also available too if any of you aren't aware of it. You do have voice typing in Google without read and write for Google. Google added that about 4 years ago. It's the same tool. So again, if the student just needs voice typing and none of these other supports, then maybe they can just use the tools within Google. I have highlighter tools and some study skill tools. So those are just two very simple examples of Snap and Read and Write for Google. Back on the website, we don't have time to delve into all the other areas, but I just want to show you that I do have resources here for reading, for Universal, for organization, Started Sensory. I have a start on Universal Design for Learning. So a lot of these, there are pages with more resources available for you. And there also are other professional development opportunities around the state where you indeed can get some more information about assistive technologies and any of the other areas in case you do need more of that information. My email address is also here on the screen. I have no problem with folks emailing me. I purposely don't put out my phone number because I'm really bad at returning phone calls, but I'm really good at responding to email. So now that I'm retired, I'm just not as big about having my phone on me all the time, and I just don't worry about the phone calls as much, but I honestly do respond to email